The situation around Jonathan Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors has gone from complicated to chaotic. And if you're a Warriors fan, today's news probably hit like a punch to the gut. Just when there was a sliver of hope that Kuminga might be willing to stick around and work things out, it's become clearer than ever. He's ready to move on, and the Warriors' front office is running out of time and options. It all started when reports surfaced that Kuminga had turned down a 3-year, $75 million extension. At first glance, most assumed the hang-up was the team option included in the deal. But digging deeper, it turns out the issue isn't about the structure of the contract. It's about location. It's about loyalty. It's about whether Kuminga even wants to wear a Golden State jersey anymore. And based on everything that's come out, the answer looks like a hard no. Now here's where it gets even more personal. Warriors owner Joe Lacob reportedly flew all the way to Miami this offseason just to have a face-to-face meeting with Kuminga. That says a lot in itself. He didn't send a rep. He didn't schedule a Zoom call. He hopped on a flight, sat down, and asked one very direct question. Do you want to be here? And Kuminga's answer? Not exactly reassuring. Instead of a clear yes, I'm committed, he deflected. Do you want me here? Now, of course, Lacob said yes. But Kuminga never gave that same confirmation in return. And that silence? That hesitation? That speaks volumes. This isn't just about contract terms anymore. This is about relationships, about chemistry, about fit. And for Kuminga, staying in Golden State might feel more like settling than committing. Despite the strong personal connection he has with ownership, especially Lacob, it's clear that he's mentally checked out. The only reason he hasn't accepted the qualifying offer or some modified version of the deal is because he's holding out for a sign-and trade. He's done with the waiting game. He's not here for promises or let's see how the season goes. He's ready to start a new chapter somewhere else. The problem is, this puts the Warriors in a terrible spot. They're stuck between trying to get fair value in return and not getting fleeced in the process. If they hold on to him too long, there's a real risk he takes that qualifying offer and bolts next summer, leaving Golden State with nothing but regret. And the worst part? They saw this coming. That meeting in Miami should have set off alarm bells across the front office. Phones should have been ringing nonstop. Plans should have been in motion immediately to either fix this situation or prepare for a trade. Instead, we're here, weeks from training camp, and Kuminga's status is still in limbo. Now let's talk value. How much is Kuminga really worth on the trade market? It's tricky. On one hand, he's shown flashes of being a future all-star, explosive athlete, improving scorer, potential two-way force. But on the other hand, he hasn't quite broken out yet, and his market hasn't exactly been on fire this offseason. Unlike someone like Josh Giddey, who had a clear market and got his money, Kuminga still feels like a what-if to a lot of front offices. And that uncertainty has teams hesitant to make big offers. We know a few teams have expressed interest. The Kings, the Suns, the Heat, even Bulls. But interest doesn't equal action. Miami, for example, loves its roster flexibility. Pat Riley is notorious for keeping the books clean and only pulling the trigger when the deal is perfect. They've turned overlooked guys like Max Struss, Caleb Martin, and even Dion Waiters into real contributors. They build from within. That's their identity. So they're not going to overpay for a project, even one with Kuminga's upside. A protected first-rounder? Maybe, but they're not putting the house on the table. Then you have a team like the Hawks. Now that's interesting. Atlanta is clearly in win-now mode, and Kuminga might be the kind of aggressive swing they're looking for. A versatile forward who can guard multiple positions, get downhill, and bring some edge to their lineup. You pair him with someone like Trae Young, stretch the floor with a big like Kristaps Porzingis, and suddenly you're cooking with something that looks a lot like a playoff team. The fit is clean. The timeline makes sense. And most importantly, Kuminga might be motivated to shine in a system built around his strengths rather than trying to mold himself into a role player next to Steph, Clay, and Draymond. Chicago's another team that keeps popping up in the rumors, but it's hard to know how real that interest is. The Bulls are constantly walking that line between rebuilding and trying to stay relevant, and adding Kuminga could go either way. He could be a core piece of the future, or just another young talent they can't quite figure out how to maximize. If Golden State really wanted to push something there, they'd have to look at guys like Vucevic, maybe Kobe White, and try to build a package that balances short-term help with long-term potential. But again, nothing's guaranteed. Now, if we're really thinking outside the box, there's still the possibility of a multi-team deal. The Suns have some interesting pieces. Think Royce O'Neal, Nick Richards, Ryan Dunn, and some second-round picks they might be willing to move. But even then, that probably only works if a third team gets involved to send a player Golden State actually wants. The Warriors need impact players, not just bodies. They need guys who fit, not just names. And that's been part of the problem all along. This roster, as it stands, feels like a mix of spare parts. You got promising young guys like Moses Moody, Pods, maybe even Buddy Hield, depending on how things shake out, but none of them really feel like natural fits with the core. The Warriors dynasty has always thrived on cohesion, on movement, on pieces that make each other better. And right now, the puzzle doesn't fit. Steph needs a tall, skilled two-guard next to him. Wiggins, or whoever plays the three, has to be able to defend and shoot. Draymond needs guys around him who can space the floor and also move without the ball. And at the five, you got to have size. Real size. Because in today's NBA, small ball is no longer the cheat code it used to be. You look around the league, and the trend is obvious. The Thunder are stacking length and versatility with guys like Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. The Rockets have gone big with Alperen Sengun, Jabari Smith Jr., and Steven Adams. The teams that are winning now, or poised to win soon, are built on size, switchability, and depth. And Golden State? They've fallen behind that curve. Even when they've had the talent, the physicality hasn't been there. The rebounding has been an issue. And Kuminga, for all his athleticism, hasn't filled that gap consistently. So now we're at a crossroads. Training camp is around the corner. The clock is ticking. And every day that Kuminga remains in limbo is another day the Warriors lose leverage. If he signs that qualifying offer, this whole situation blows up. They lose him for nothing next summer. If they wait too long and the market dries up, they're stuck with an unhappy player and no clear path forward. The smart move? Move him now. Don't drag this out. Grant him his wish. Get what you can and start reshaping this roster with guys who actually want to be part of the system. Because no matter how talented Kuminga is, and he is talented, you can't force chemistry. You can't manufacture buy-in. And based on everything we've seen, Kuminga's heart just isn't in it anymore. Whether it's issues with Coach Kerr, frustration with his role, or just a desire for a fresh start, the writing's on the wall. He wants out, and holding on to him just because of a personal relationship with ownership is not a strategy. It's a mistake. The Warriors have always been at their best when they're ahead of the curve, when they make bold moves that others hesitate on. Trading Monta to make room for Steph, letting KD walk and reshaping around a new core. Drafting guys who fit the culture instead of chasing hype. Now is the time for that kind of thinking again. It's time to think creatively. Time to think big. Because if they don't, they risk wasting what could be the last great years of Steph Curry's career. While the Jonathan Kuminga situation dominates headlines, the real concern underneath all of this is how the Warriors are going to restructure the roster before things start to spiral out of control. The front office is walking on thin ice, and every decision from here on out could directly impact how competitive this team will be not just this season, but for the next 3 to 5 years. Kuminga's desire to move on only amplifies the urgency. He's not asking for more minutes or a different role anymore. He's flat out saying he's not interested in staying, even with a solid offer on the table. And that's where the front office can't afford to be emotional. This isn't about saving face or clinging to a failed project. It's about asset management. And right now, the only way to salvage any value from this situation is to execute a smart, forward-thinking trade. The Warriors can't fall into the trap of overvaluing their own player just because he's still young and has potential. Potential doesn't win championships. Production does. Cohesion does. And you can tell, even from last season, that the Kuminga experiment hasn't exactly clicked the way people hoped it would. Yes, he had big moments. Yes, he's still only 22. But this is year 4 now. If it hasn't clicked in Golden State's system, a system designed to elevate high IQ players and selfless decision-making, then maybe it's just not going to. And that's okay. But holding on to him in hopes of a sudden breakthrough, especially after all the recent signs of disconnect, is only going to drag the whole team down. This is where a bold front office earns its reputation. You're looking for fit, for chemistry, for players who want to be in Golden State, understand the system, and bring something the team actually lacks. That's why trade targets shouldn't just be about matching salaries or grabbing the biggest name available. It's about building the right roster, and that means thinking a step ahead. If Kuminga gets moved, the Warriors shouldn't just be focused on getting another forward in return. They need depth. They need defense. They need size. And above all, they need players who can play within the structure, not around it. There's been a lot of talk about multi-team trades, and honestly, that might be the best route to go. Teams like the Suns, Bulls, and Heat have different pieces to offer, but individually none of those teams can give the Warriors everything they need in one deal. That's where creative front office work comes in. You find a third or even fourth team. You balance out the salaries. You move off one or two guys who don't fit anymore, like Buddy Hield or Moses Moody, and you bring in someone who can step into a meaningful role right away. Maybe it's a veteran wing who can stretch the floor and defend. Maybe it's a backup big who brings rim protection and rebounding. Or maybe it's a young point guard who can take pressure off Steph in the regular season. But whatever direction they go, the idea that they can just wait this out is the worst possible strategy. Because other teams are watching. They know Kuminga wants out. They know the Warriors are under pressure. The longer this goes on, the more leverage Golden State loses. And once training camp starts, the distractions become real. Reporters asking questions every day. Teammates wondering what's going on. Coaching staff having to adjust rotations in case a trade goes down mid-preseason. It creates noise. And that's the last thing a veteran team trying to stay in contention needs. Even if Kuminga doesn't speak publicly about his frustrations, his body language says enough. He's checked out. And every day that passes without a resolution hurts his value a little more. That's the harsh reality of modern NBA trades. Perception matters. A player who's seen as disgruntled or unreliable, even if unfairly, becomes harder to move. So the Warriors have to act now while there's still a market for him. Because once teams start finalizing their rosters in the next few weeks, that window could close fast. Now, one potential scenario that keeps resurfacing is a package involving the Hawks. Atlanta is desperate to prove to Trae Young that they can contend. They're looking to retool, maybe even reshape their identity a bit. Kuminga gives them energy, athleticism, and upside, a player who could thrive in a faster, more open system. Golden State, in return, might be able to get a couple of rotation-ready guys, maybe even some future picks, depending on how creative they get with the framework. It won't be a blockbuster, but it doesn't need to be. It just needs to be the right fit. And speaking of fit, let's not forget what's happening with the Warriors bench. This team once had arguably the best bench in the NBA. Deep, smart, and always ready to contribute. That's no longer the case. Right now, it feels like a collection of guys with no defined roles. The chemistry isn't there. The rotations are clunky. And outside of a few bright spots, the production is inconsistent. This is why finding the right kind of player in a Kuminga trade is so critical. You don't need another flashy scorer who wants touches. You need someone who understands their role, can defend multiple positions, and isn't afraid to do the dirty work. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. Whispers have been swirling through the basketball world, and the Bay Area is suddenly at the epicenter of a rumor too electric to ignore. Word is that the Golden State Warriors, never shy about bold moves, have pulled off a lightning-fast signing of rising Filipino sensation RHENZ Abando, a name that has already been lighting up conversations in gyms and online forums across Asia. According to insiders close to the situation, the deal materialized almost overnight, a flash decision that reflects Golden State's hunger to inject fresh spectacle into a roster hungry for both spark and versatility. Abando, known for his high-flying dunks, relentless defense, and a flair for showmanship, seems to fit the Warriors' DNA of entertainment blended with substance. While official confirmation remains elusive, The mere suggestion has sent shockwaves through fan bases both in Manila and San Francisco. Observers note that this wouldn't be the first time Golden State looked east for inspiration, but the immediacy of the move, described by one anonymous source as a snap of the fingers, a gamble with fireworks, suggests the team sees Abando not just as a developmental project, but as an immediate contributor. The timing also feels deliberate, with the Warriors eager to reignite their dynasty after recent struggles. Adding an unpredictable yet dazzling talent could be the gamble that pays off big. The rumor mill is already churning with debates. Will Abando crack Steve Kerr's rotation right away? Could his athleticism energize a bench unit often criticized for inconsistency? And perhaps more tantalizing, what does this mean for Golden State's global brand, which has long thrived on its ability to connect with fans beyond American borders? For now, there's no press release, no photo of Abando holding up the iconic jersey, just whispers, speculation, and a rising sense of anticipation. Yet if the noise proves true, the Warriors may have just pulled off one of the most surprising coups of the offseason, uniting East and West in a move as bold as it is unpredictable. In the NBA rumor landscape, few stories burn brighter, and this one is only just beginning to ignite. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.